You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today I want to talk about opinions. I want to talk about personal opinions, personal perspective, and I want to illuminate a situation that many of us find ourselves in, not mysteriously find ourselves in, but we find ourselves in the situation because we put ourselves right there. You know, I think it's interesting when I go to a restaurant and I overhear people at the next table asking the waitress or the waiter, "What's good here? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite thing on the menu?" Always good questions, but why ask? Are you interested in what the waiter or the waitress thinks is the best thing on the menu? Do you think that that item of food is going to directly relate to your personal food eating habits? Okay? And it's interesting how that little prelude, that little question in a restaurant can actually manipulate someone's entire life. We can live that way in every single situation without even realizing that we're doing it. We don't even realize that we're asking someone else their opinion, their perspective, when their opinion, to most part for our life, really doesn't matter because it doesn't apply to us. You know, I really think it's interesting. I don't know how many times I've asked it when I was younger. I used to ask that question a dozen times at a restaurant. Any restaurant I went to, especially if it was new and I hadn't been there before, I asked the waiter or the waitress what they liked, which I love hearing what other people like. That's not the concern. But the funny thing is that I thought that what they like would coordinate to what I like, meaning that I could just take their opinion, their perspective, their suggestion as face value, and that would end up being my favorite food on that menu. And it's interesting because I know most of you kind of know a little bit about me. I think some of you might know a lot about me. But one of the things that most people kind of know about me is that I don't eat meat. I don't eat beef. I don't eat chicken. I don't eat pork. I don't eat cheese. There's certain things that I don't eat. And so for sure, nowadays, I don't ask anybody what they're going to eat because usually that never coincides with anything that I'm going to be able to eat, much less actually eat. And it was interesting because recently I was at a restaurant with some friends, and one of the girls that was at the table with me had never been to that restaurant. And she asked the waitress, what do you suggest? What's your favorite thing? And the waitress came back and said, well, I'll tell you what the best thing is. The best thing is the steak, and it's got this crab sauce on top of it with this butter, and it's on this bed of foie gras, encrusted with almonds, and it's to die for. And I thought it was funny because my friend that was asking the question is a vegan. What vegan asked somebody that question? And I thought it was funny. I said, so you're gonna get the special? You're gonna get the steak special with the foie gras? And she kind of looked at me like in horror. But think about it. Oftentimes, we do this in our normal life. We ask people what they would do, their idea, their perception, their direction. We ask them for their information, their input. But what does that input do for us? Where does that input get us? And where are we if we follow that input? And I think it's interesting because I find that oftentimes we ask these questions because we feel like a fish out of water, or we want validation, or we want to understand someone else's ideas, or we think, maybe that might transcribe to our life. But oftentimes what happens when we ask those questions about people? What? It doesn't work out for us. It's not what we need. It's not the right thing for us. It's not the right direction for us. So we're stuck again at the time. Think about sitting at that table, asking somebody else what they wanted, assuming after we hear what they suggest is great, we can't even eat or we don't want to eat. So then you're back at the drawing board looking at the menu, making your own decision like you should have been doing in the beginning when you first sat down. So I ask you, what is it that makes us ask that question. When you think about the general example of the restaurant, which I think is actually pretty enlightening when you think about it, because if you use the restaurant idea and you use that example and you kind of keep that in your head, it makes this whole show very logical. And the fact that you begin to realize the situations that you ask those questions of other people. And I think it happens more often than we realize. Should I attend that event? Should I go to that class? Should I apply for this job? Should I buy this car? Is this a reliable car? Is this not a reliable car? Is this a good school to attend? Is this a good job for me to apply for? What do you think? What should I do? And if you realize how impactful what this show is saying is this, and what I am working on throughout this hour that we'll be discussing, is when we can find ourselves in these situations, better yet, why we put ourselves in these situations, and the outcome that can come out of these situations based on the fact that we give our power to other people. And I think in any situation, whether it's the restaurant or asking about a job, applying for a job, a specific car, a product, a service, a neighborhood, a school, we have to do our own due diligence. And I think oftentimes we do want the easy way out. We want somebody to tell us what to do. We want somebody to tell us it's all going to be okay. We want somebody to say, hey, everything's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Life's going to be fine. No worries. Let me tell you what to do. You follow my lead and life's going to be great. But how often does that work? How often does that truly work? Because I know recently when I have given up my power to let somebody else take over, it hasn't worked very well. If anything, it's actually become an actual problem. If anything, it's caused a lot of stress and anxiety in my life. In the beginning, it seemed like the easy way out, but there is no easy way out in this world. And I figure that every time we do try to take the easy way out, we get screwed. And it's not that the universe is screwing us over. It's that we're screwing ourselves over. Because why? And I think I figured out the 6 reasons. The 6 reasons why we defer to other people. The 6 reasons why we ask other people the question. The 6 reasons why we look at somebody else and go, help me make that decision because I'm not sure if I can make this on my own. But we kind of veil it in the fact of, what would you do? What would you do? How many times have we asked that question when we're in a relationship of other people to make these major decisions in our life? What do you think? He's a total jerk. Everything's just falling apart in our life. Should I get a divorce? Should I get a divorce? Do you think I should leave him? For goodness sakes. Really? We ask people some major questions in our life. We ask them and we think nothing of the background for the creation of their response. And let me explain, for example, as a therapist, I'm somebody that if you're thinking about going and getting a divorce, you probably want to talk to me. And the reason why you want to talk to me is I don't know your husband. I don't know your wife. I don't have any sort of reasons or preconceived notions on what I think about your marriage or what you should do. I don't have anything to win or lose out of the situation if you stay together, if you don't stay together. The thing is that I'm an impartial helper, an impartial informant, and an impartial person that you can listen to your thoughts and understand where you're coming from and understand what you need to do because you get your ideas out of your head and you speak it out clearly and we can sit there and determine what you need to do to make yourself feel better, but also to get that life that you want. However, how often do you ask your friends and people that have something to lose or have something to gain by you getting divorced, how often do you ask them about what you should do with your marriage? And, think about it. What is their perspective and why do they give that reason? For example, you'll have someone that says, you should stay together. There's nothing worse than getting a divorce. The kids need a parent. The kids need a mom and dad. They don't need a separated family. They don't need this. You need to stay together no matter what and figure out your situation. Okay. Well, that person could just be there because they care about you. They care about the kids. They could have come from a broken home. where their parents didn't stay together and they wish to God they had. They might have been a really sad child throughout their childhood because their parents were divorced. Whatever that might be, it might not have anything to do with your personal welfare. It could be from where they come from, what their past is, and how they believe. On the flip side, somebody could say, get a divorce. Yeah, life's too short. Okay, life's too short to be in a bad marriage. Well, on the flip side, that person could be on their third divorce or never been married or doesn't see the reason for being married and has never had any children and has no idea why you would even stay together and doesn't even think about the concept of the children or the problem with the shared custody or the divorce or whatever that matters because they don't understand their perspective. They don't come from that type of perspective. But again, how often do we ask somebody their opinion on something that they might be well versed in or not? Stay tuned because we'll be right back, and check out the website, ashleyburgess.com, ashleyburgess.com, and read the latest blogs and listen to the latest shows. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. This episode is supported by Bombas, an online retailer, premium high-performance athletic socks for the most comfortable socks you'll ever wear. Visit Get Bombas, B-O-M-B-A-S, getbombas.com/Ashley, and save 20% off your first order of 4 or more pairs, and always free shipping. You know, we're talking tonight about why do we ask other people's opinions when it comes to personal choices in our life? Why? Why do we feel the need to ask other people? You know, a good example is being in that restaurant. You walk into the restaurant for the first time, you look around, you sit down, you look at the menu, the waitress or waiter comes by and says, hey, can I get you something to drink? And you go, sure, and you order something to drink. Like, you don't have to ask them about that. Right? But then you look at the menu and go, well, what do you suggest? What's your favorite meal on this menu? What would you get if you were me? And you're asking someone that might come from a totally different viewpoint of yours. You might be asking someone that has a completely different dietary restrictive or non-restrictive diet than yours. Heck, you could be a vegan and they could be a carnivore. You could be a carnivore and they could be a vegan. Okay, so why do we ask? What is in that formulation? And why do we do that with almost everything in our life? Do I look good today? Should I get divorced? Should I stay in this marriage? What do you think about having another kid? Should we move? Should I apply for that job? What's good to eat here? Think about all these questions. I mean, what about this? Should I buy this car? Is this a good car to buy? Should I go to this school for my master's? You know, should my kids go to this school? Should I move into this neighborhood? All great questions, okay? But what answer are you looking for? What answer are you looking for? Because those are really important things to think about, because if you don't really think about it long enough and you don't understand the reasoning behind what I'm explaining, you will ask questions of other people. They will give you answers. You will follow their answer, and you're not going to be very happy with the outcome. You're going to be miserable with the outcome because it's not what you want. So why do we ask? So today I want to talk about the 6 reasons why we ask other people's perspective and opinions without really thinking about what that implication means, okay? We don't think about the fact that they could come from a totally different background. I mean, for example, if you're dealing with a problem in your marriage and the other person is trying to hold on to their marriage, they're going to tell you to stay together. If you're dealing with somebody that doesn't really respect marriage and you're asking them if you should stay in it and they're single and that they are swinging single, they're going to tell you to get divorced. What about what you're going to eat? You ask the waitress and waiter without any idea what their dietary restrictions are, what they eat. You're going to ask them what to eat? I mean, for example, the other day I was with a friend of mine, like I was saying, and she's vegan. And the waiter said, oh yeah, the filet with the crab boula base on it, with the foie gras base. That's like 3 animals on a plate. I'm surprised they didn't offer the turkey with the duck and whatever else that is in there, the tofurkey or whatever that is with the 3 different meats. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't offer the sausage and steak combination with the duck on the side, okay? I mean, why would you ask? I mean, I could understand if you asked the waiter, hey, what's your dietary restrictions? Do you have any? And if they say, hey, I'm vegan, and you go, oh, you're vegan? I'm vegan too. What would you suggest on this menu as a vegan? Okay, that makes more sense, doesn't it? But when is the last time you asked for the background to the reason to give credence to what somebody says? Right? When was the last time you asked someone for their background before you asked them a question that you may or may not follow up with? I think the first reason why we do it is we're uncertain. We're uncertain. We're uncertain into what way to go, which direction to take. They're uncertain into the next direction, what we should do, the next level stuff. And so we ask someone else because we think they might know more than we do. They may know more than I do, and so I better ask. Okay? One thing that I've figured out oftentimes is very randomly does that ever work. Most of the time, you just need to go find out the information for yourself. Whether you're on a cruise ship and you need to know where the exits are just in case something happens. In a hotel, you need to know where the fire escape is. Not a bad idea to get into your room and then find it. It's not like you're being weird. It's just good information to know. Right? And that's the key here is that in every way in your life, you can get to know that information without having to go through someone else to do it. You cut out the middleman and you cut out the misinterpretation based on somebody else's past that dictates their perspective. Right? Think about it. It takes a really deep person over a period of time throughout a whole lifetime to morph and evolve their perspective even away from their family. Think about it. I mean, I've changed my perspective based on my history and based on opening my mind and my heart and feeling what it's like to be in other people's shoes. And that has helped me change my perspective. So I'm not just a replica of my mom and my dad. Not that my mom and dad are bad. They're amazing people, but I am my own self. Based on that, the only way to be your own self is to create your own perspective based on your own willingness to have an open mind and your acceptance of the fact that our past does sometimes dictate our future based on what we choose because of our daily perspective. So that uncertainty that we have, that uncertainty making me feel that I should ask someone else what I should do, or what's the next level, or what's the next direction, or whatever that means, right? The next thing is that it's a new situation. When we find ourselves in new situations, we get a little insecure, we get a little uneasy, we feel a little unbalanced. And in those new situations, right, we have to analyze it for what it is, but oftentimes, instead of sitting back and analyzing the situation, understanding the dynamic, realizing while everybody's here and what everybody has to bring to the table, we automatically presuppose the fact that the people that are already here know more than we do. We also feel that we can kind of take like the cliff notes of the situation, meaning that without doing our due diligence, we can come up with the answers prior to that. However, when was the last time you read the cliff notes to any decent book and actually know what really happened and the intricacies that somebody's going to ask you? Because it's those intricacies, it's the details in the situation that allow us to understand where we stand. Not just the generalizations, not just the basic overview or blanket idea that we can definitely grab from other people, but it's like being there, being part of it, understanding the situation, but better yet, taking it to that next level and putting ourselves in the situation and doing the much needed due diligence that we need to do to carry out what needs to happen right now. That's a big deal. But it takes us to understand that a new situation doesn't have to make us feel uncomfortable. It could be invigorating. It could be invigorating because it allows us to use our sense of understanding and allows us to use our sense of centering to actually find an amazing idea and direction and caveat of the situation and how we can actually make this not only work for ourselves, but how we can integrate ourselves into the situation seamlessly. And I think it's very interesting because I think oftentimes we get scared because we get scared of a new situation. We might feel a little out of touch. We might feel a little on the sidelines. We wonder if are we doing the right thing? Is this the usual technique? Do people understand me? Will they get me? Will they understand me? Better yet, will I come up with the right solution? And I also find oftentimes that when we do ask other people's opinions too soon, we tend to take ourselves out of the equation because all of a sudden we put ourselves on the sidelines and we go, okay, your opinion's better than mine. We are basically saying to ourselves, this person's opinion is more accurate than my own, and therefore, because it's more accurate, I am going to go with it. Are you sure? Is that a good idea? I mean, I don't think in any situation we should ever defer that to someone else, except for in a life or death situation when somebody else knows more and you know that for a fact. For example, you're on a plane and everybody around you is a group of skydivers. They're all educated skydivers that have been skydiving for 25 years, right? And all of a sudden, 20 minutes into the plane ride, you find out that you've got to get a pack on and you've got to jump out of that plane. Okay? There's no other way. You're not going to survive if you don't jump out of that plane. What's the next step? I'd be talking to these skydivers and see if I can tandem on with them because you know what? They've been doing this long enough. I'm going to look up to somebody that has been. But how often do we give that power to someone else that's never, ever been skydiving? Stay tuned. Check out the rest of the show. Don't miss the rest of the show because this is going to change your life forever. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. This episode of Live Your True Life Perspectives is sponsored by Bombas. Bombas is an online retailer of socks engineered and designed to look, feel, and perform better. Bombas is all about comfort. They're made with long, stable Pima cotton that is incredibly soft and breathable, and they stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Bombas has created the highest quality and most innovative socks around. The honeycomb support system provides extra support in your arch. The hand-linked toe seam eliminates that annoying bump that runs across the toes on ordinary socks. And the Y-stitched heel provides a natural cup around your heel. Bombas socks have a reinforced footbed but are not overwhelmingly thick. Ankle socks are complete with a blister tab to prevent painful rubbing and chafing, and calf socks are engineered to the perfect tension and elasticity so they always stay up. Bombas socks are not only the most comfortable socks that you'll ever put on your feet, you'll also feel good about your purchase. For every pair that you purchase, Bombas donates a special pair to those in need. Socks are the most requested items in homeless shelters, and Bombas has donated almost 1 million pairs to date. And with their 100% happiness guarantee, you'll love your Bombas or your money is back. Visit getbombas.com/Ashley. Getbombas.com/Ashley and save 20% off your first purchase of 4 or more pairs plus free shipping. That's getbombas.com/Ashley. On today's show, we've been talking about doing your own thing, coming up with your own opinion, and to stop asking other people what they think and to start answering that question for yourself. It's time for us to get back into the game of life, to understand what we want and what we need, and to not ask other people their opinions, because oftentimes I find other people's opinions aren't exactly what we need. Quite the opposite, really. They're actually the opposite of what we need. It's their choice, and their choice is based on their perspective, their needs, their wants, their desires, highly usually different than ours. Very rarely will you find someone that feels the same as you do. And if you do, that's amazing, but that's not going to normally happen by asking somebody randomly that you don't know and you don't know their background at all to give you a decision on your life. You know, the first few things we've been talking about are the reasons, the 6 reasons why we ask other people's opinions and how it doesn't work. The first thing was that we're uncertain, so we think that other people might know more than we do, which is usually not the case. Normally, in a new situation, we feel that everybody else that's already there knows more, but I think oftentimes we feel like a fish out of water, so we want to ask them their opinion. But I think that we do ourselves a grave disservice when we do. Why? It's because we don't allow ourselves to come up with our own unique perspective. We almost automatically in the very beginning discredit our own perspective. We discredit our own perspective before we even have a chance. And I think that when we find ourselves in these new experiences, instead of feeling uncertain, feel captivated, feel interested, be curious. Because I think being curious allows us to formulate our own perspective and to choose wisely for ourselves. And I think the reason that's important is that when we allow the uncertainty to morph into curiosity, right? We automatically allow ourselves to be more thoughtful, more intrigued, more interested, more dynamic, more original in our choices. You know, we also allow ourselves to see things we wouldn't allow ourselves to see, and we give ourselves a little more time to make decisions. We also accept the fact that we do have a different perspective, and not to discredit that perspective, but yet to give it more energy, to, you know, pat it on the back, to allow it to incubate into something very amazing. When we allow ourselves to make choices, when we allow ourselves to make decisions, but better yet, when we allow ourselves to take it to the next level, we basically give credence to it. And the thing is about this is that oftentimes we kind of cut ourselves short. We underestimate our ability. We underestimate our education because we don't feel like we're good enough. And I think that goes to the basis of one of the reasons why we ask these questions way back in the crevices of our brain. We, to some degree, undervalue our opinion or our ideas. We undervalue ourselves. And because we do, we have a tendency of not choosing what's good for us. We don't choose what's good for us because we are not sure what that looks like, because we haven't really pursued what that means. And so I ask you right now to begin to really think about that. When was the last time that instead of making the decision on your own, you decided to ask someone else's opinion? After you got their opinion, when was the last time that you got their opinion and went, oh my gosh, why did I ask? Because I'm going to go the other way anyway, or I can't accept that. And then how did you feel when that other person saw you and was listening to you when you chose differently? I think it's easier more than not to not ask. Because, you know, when you ask someone's opinion, it's human nature for other people to want you to accept their opinion instead of go against it. But isn't it normal that most of the time their opinion is antithetical to your thought process? And it's not in a good or bad way. It's just the way it is. One size does not fit all. So why do we ask other people what they feel? Why do we ask other people? And besides the fact that we're uncertain, and besides the fact that it's a new, uncomfortable situation, I think the third reason why we ask is that we feel like we need encouragement. I feel that encouragement is a big deal. We need encouragement. And so we ask other people in the hopes that they have chosen what we will choose, that we will choose, that they'll choose what we choose, and we'll choose the same thing, and it's going to be awesome, and we're all going to feel good about each other and pat each other on the back because we chose the same thing. But how often does that happen? I mean, when it does happen, it's pretty cool. But do we have to come from a deficit? can we make the choice and then the other person say, hey, that's what I chose too. That's cool. And all of a sudden there's a little validation, certainly, but do we need that validation? I think all of us have a unique life path. It's very different. It's a very different, unique life path. Everybody, that's the reason why the word unique is involved with the life path, because every life path is different. Every life path has its own way and shape and format. And every one of them is different because it's all different individuals. We're all going to the same end game. We're all going to the same spot. But we're all taking different ways to get there. It's the same as people going to work every day. You can have 500 people work in the same office, right? 500 people work in the same office building. And how many of those people take the bus? How many drive themselves? How many take the subway? If there is a subway in that town or that city. How many people take an Uber or a Lyft? How many people carpool with other people? How many people bike ride? How many people bike up to work? How many people run to work? How many people live right next door to the office? How many people have to literally take an hour and a half to 2 hour drive in each way every day? How many people actually have to fly in on a Monday because they live out of state and fly out on a Friday to be back with their family out of state? Think about all those 500 people and how many different ways that they have to get to work. It's not the same way. And that applies to anything in your life when you think about it. Anything applies that way. And so when we ask somebody a question about what they feel we should do, most of the time it's not going to be logical to our entire life, because it's going to go antithetical, or it's not going to be a relevant component, or it's not going to be easy, or it's going to be challenging, or it's going to be going off and kind of missing the boat, or it's not going to take into consideration extenuating circumstances that we have. Because I think we all have extenuating circumstances to some time, right? We all do. It's the way life is. We're human. We're unique. Our qualities are different. Our abilities are different. Hence, why we all have a unique purpose that we have to figure out. And because most of the time when we ask people, especially strangers and people who don't know, they don't know where we're coming from. They only know what they like and what their perspective is. They're not trying to understand you. They're not trying to get into your mind. They're not trying to figure you out. That person's wearing this, and so I don't see any leather, so they must be a vegan. And so therefore, I will let them know about the best vegan meal there is on the menu. Well, no. Most people are not paying enough attention to you to understand that. And why I say that is not because of anger or resentment, because of the truth. It's just the way life is. And when I return, I'm going to tell you why that is. Because I think oftentimes we give people more than they deserve. Not in a good way, not in a bad way. But we assume that they get it more. We assume they understand it more. We assume that they are in our head and in our mind, but they're not. Stay tuned to Live Your True Life Perspectives. I'll be back here in a few minutes. And in the meantime, check out the website, AshleyBurgess.com. Listen to me on Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Be back this time in 2 shakes.
You could be my luck.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Safe and sound.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We've been talking about asking other people their opinion to have them make the decisions for you in your life. And oftentimes, these opinions don't really converge into an acceptable solution. Because we're asking somebody that doesn't know our perspective, our background, our journey, our purpose to give us an answer to a question that we should probably know the answer to ourselves, or at least do the due diligence to do it. Right before the break, I was talking about how oftentimes people don't necessarily see you. And what I mean by that is we often go into life and we walk around and we go to work and we go, oh my God, somebody's going to realize I wore this outfit earlier this week. Well, most people, I would say 99.9% of the people won't even have a clue. Why? Because they're not paying that much attention. Remember that oftentimes most people are in their own mind, paying attention to their own life, trying to get through their own life. They have less time to worry about you. And so think about it. When we ask these questions of people, we assume that they might understand us or come from our perspective, but how can they? They can't, because they have no idea. They're not mind readers, and they're probably not that empathetic or really taking time to really focus on what you want. And even if they are, how can they do that? They have no idea. And so I ask you, when you're in an uncertain situation, to begin to have curiosity, to formulate your own opinion and to choose wisely. When you're in a new situation, instead of being uncomfortable, be invigorated. Be invigorated with the fact that it's something new and something interesting, and it'll get your noodle working. Third, we need encouragement, and we can encourage ourselves. And the more we encourage ourselves to make the right decisions in life, the more we feel better about our decisions, and the more we make better decisions for ourselves, because guess what? We did what's right by ourselves, and we believe in ourselves. Fourth is that we're wanting validation. We want somebody else to validate us. That's why we've asked them the question. But when does that validation ever really happen? Oftentimes we're left there holding the bag because they don't understand. They don't get where we're coming from. And it's not for them to get it. It's not for them to understand. It's for us to make the right choice for our life based on what's right for us. Not what's right for them, not what's right for somebody across the table from you, but what's right for you in this exact situation and moment in time. The fifth reason why we go outside of ourselves to ask these questions is we don't want to make a decision. And I think that's one of the big situations in life, is oftentimes we would rather, sit there on the fence and not make a decision. Why? Because we don't want to make the wrong decision. Why? Because we're still weighing the pros and cons. But I think we're scared to make a decision, because when we make a decision, we have to go forward with that decision. What happens if we make the wrong decision? Well, guess what? In our lives, we're going to make right decisions and we're going to make wrong decisions. And the more we make wrong decisions and right decisions, but we make decisions based on our own accountability, the more we do that, the more readily we are able to make right decisions, the more direction we will have, the more respect and understanding we'll have for ourselves. But when we make mistakes, we learn from them. And so I would tell you and suggest you not to be scared of making a decision and the fear of making a mistake, but quite the contrary. I would rather make a mistake and make a decision than to not make a decision at all. And I would certainly rather make a mistake of my own than asking somebody else to make the decision for me and then having a bad situation arise. A good example of this situation is you're in your car, you're driving down the road, and you get in an accident. It's your car. Your car has to get body damage done. It's gone for 2 weeks. You're in a rental car. Or what you could do is let someone else drive your car and let them wreck your car for you. Which one is a better decision for you? Sure, maybe you went the wrong way. Maybe you were going too fast. Maybe you went the wrong direction and you got hit. Maybe you shouldn't have been driving at the time, but it was your car and you got hit on your own accord. Isn't it worse if you loan your car to somebody or you let them drive and they get hit and maybe you could have prevented that accident? Think about it that way. We all make mistakes, but is it better to make our own mistake than to take someone else's word for it and then have a fallout in the future situations? The last but not least reason number 6 of why we allow this, is that we don't value our own opinion. We don't value our own opinion because we underestimated our ability. Why do we do that? Because we have an insecure ability, because we don't feel good about ourselves, because we were raised a certain way, or somebody told us a long time ago that we're not good enough. And I ask you right now to begin to change that, to begin to change the concept of not being good enough, because you are good enough. You are good enough, because why would everybody else be better than you? You come to the table with a unique gift, a unique perspective. But in order to use that gift to its fullest potential, you have to be willing to make decisions on your own. You have to be willing to make those decisions You have to be willing to make amazing choices and to make mistakes in the process. And when you realize that and you understand that, yes, mistakes will be made, it makes it a lot more easier. When you understand that cleaning up after your own mistake is a lot better than cleaning up under somebody else's mistake, you get it. And that's when you begin to realize that asking other people for their opinion is a fun discussion and a conversational piece, but it's not your direction for life. You owe it to yourself to make those decisions, no matter how big or how small. Will I move to another country for this job? Will I order the omelet this morning? It's up to you to make that decision, because no matter what decision it is, it all has certain things that happen in the end. There are all causes, there are all effects. If it's moving to another country for a job, it's that move. It's a big deal. You have to decide a lot of different things. There's a lot of moving parts involved. If you make a mistake, you can always move back. If you made the best choice in your life, it's perfect too. Either way, you learned. But if you let someone else decide for you, you'll never know. It's the same with that omelet. If somebody tells you what to eat and you get totally food poison on it, that's a tough day. It's a tough day. But when you make your own decision, it seems easier to swallow that and to deal with it. And so I ask you to begin to analyze your decisions, begin to make your own decisions, and find that self-worth within you. And as you make more and more decisions for your life, and you make more and more positive decisions for your life, more empowering decisions for your life, you begin to not only empower yourself, but through time, have a higher self-esteem. You'll believe in yourself even more. And guess what? Eventually, you'll realize your true inherent value. Stay tuned. I got a great show for you next, and Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.